biochemistry, and it's called the Krebs cycle. Get me now? Now, the Krebs cycle is also known as the TCA cycle. That is in short. But the full meaning of that TCA I just got for you now is called the tricarboxylic acid cycle. Are you with me now? Now we continue. Now, the Krebs cycle is of great importance to us in the sense that the TCA cycle is the main source of energy for cells. Take note that the TCA cycle is the main source of energy for cell, and also another important part in what now? In aerobic what now? Respiration. Exactly. Now we continue. Now it will interest you to know some tips about the TCA cycle or about the Krebs cycle. They all mean the same thing. Now, and what they did. Now, the Krebs cycle basically was first discovered by a man called Albert Szent-Györgyi. He was the first scientist to talk about the components of what now the Krebs cycle. But it was first identified, or it was then identified finally by two scientists, and they are Ernst Adolf Kreb and William Otto Johnson in the year 1937. Exactly. Now, what the Krebs cycle? And the Krebs cycle is a series or a set of 8 reactions in which acetyl-CoA group is condensed with what now? With oxaloacetate. At the same time, at the overall, 2 CO2 are lost and oxaloacetate is regenerated. From the word the TCA cycle, it is a cycle. Unlike other pathways that are linear, such as the glycolytic pathway, the gluconeogenesis, and other pathways, they are linear. But in the case of the Krebs cycle, it is cyclic in nature. It is cyclic in nature, in which what? And take note, the steps are 8 steps. You get me now? There are 8 sets of what now? 8 sets of reaction. I've told you, in which acetyl-CoA. Remember that acetyl-CoA is a central metabolite. Take note, it's a central metabolite, and that when it is being condensed with oxaloacetate, 2 CO2 is what now? Is lost, and oxaloacetate is regenerated. Now, take note that each round of the TCA cycle will generate what now? 3 nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, which is in their reduced form, and 1 what now? 1 ubiquinose, and 1 GDP or ATP. Again, too, the TCA cycle occurs in the cytosol of prokaryotes. Very, very important in the prokaryotes. Take note, it's in the prokaryotes, it occurs in the cytosol, while in the eukaryotes, it occurs in the matrix of the what now? Of the mitochondria. Again, too, it was also interesting to know that the pathways intermediates of the TCA cycle can participate in many reactions, serving as both a precursors and products of a large varieties of biological molecules. Please do not forget that this acetyl-CoA is coming from the catabolic breakdown of some of the pathways that are involved, that are in carbohydrates, that are in amino acids, and also from fatty acids. And this acetyl-CoA basically is coming from the pyruvate, which is the 3 carbon. You get me now? Remember, I've told that the acetyl-CoA is a central what now? That is a central metabolite produced from the metabolism of what now? Of glucose, of amino acids, and also the fatty what now? The fatty acid. Please take note. Since the pathways, or since the set of reaction are 8 sets of reaction, take note. There's what we call a regulatory steps that are located in them, and which are what also produce what we call the feedback inhibition mechanism, which I told you, I said the flux through the TCA is regulated primarily by what we call the feedback inhibition at 3 steps, and the 3 steps are step 1, step 3, and step 4. All these steps will be well illustrated for you in our next what now? Our next video. So, but now we said something here, that in some tissues the bulk of acetyl CoA is derived from where now? From the breakdown, which is we also call it catabolism, from the catabolism of what now? Fatty acids rather than carbohydrates or amino acid. Take note, very very important. Now the pathway starting from oxaloacetate and proceeding to the right is what now? Is an oxidative biosynthetic pathway, whereas the pathway that proceeds to the left is a reductive pathway, which we will see in our next video talking about the pathway in general. So, like a quick review, we move straight down to the Kreb cycle. I've told you that the Kreb cycle is a cycle, it's a linear, path, it's a cyclic pathway in which it involves an excess of reaction in which acetyl CoA coming from pyruvates that is condensed with oxaloacetate with the release of 2 molecules